Recently, I watched a news report on the ABC about racism in Australia in the transport industry. Pretty much racism from the Aussie side towards the Indian truck drivers. Now, I've got a fair bit to say about this, and I want you to watch this news report, and I'm going to stop, in between and have my opinion of what I think. But first of all, can I just say that when it comes to racism and attacking someone because of their colour of their skin or where they come from or how they speak is never okay. I absolutely condemn it. I don't like it. Now, I've met a lot of Indian drivers, and a lot of them are very nice. A lot of them have a lot of courtesy. They help me get in front of them when I drive. They bring me over. Now, they are the good ones. Now, it's hard to really talk about standards out on the highway and confronting someone of Indian background about their safety, about the concerns you have for their driving and their standards and all that type of stuff. Because for some reason in Australia, as soon as you raise a concern towards somebody of different colour, different ethnicity, different religion, that's it, racism. It's a racist rant, which I'll tell you a story about within the video about a time when a driver that I know was confronted about being a racist when all he did was confront this guy about something that he was doing. Now, we're going to watch this video, and I'm going to stop halfway, bits and pieces in between when I want to say something, and we'll have a look. And then I encourage you in the comments to write down your opinion. Keep it clean, keep it legitimate, because when you start ranting about racism, calling them this and calling them that, that's when you get dismissed and your opinion is not valid. It just gets dismissed. You've got to be smart about it, and you've got to be genuinely concerned and raise the concerns about it. So let's go ahead and start now.
These truck drivers experience racial abuse every day. On the radio, on social media, and in person.
Before sitting in this truck, he spat on me. I have to be careful all the time.
All right, the first thing that I will say is there racism out on the highway? Yes, there is. Is it as bad as what the ABC makes it out to be? No. You've got to remember, these TV stations and these news reporters, these investigative journalists, they got to dramatically dramatise it all. They've got to make it a lot worse than what it actually is. And they're making it out as if all Indians out there have to watch their backs because the Aussies are out to get them, and at any time we could pounce and hurt you. That is not the case at all. What you've heard on here now with these, racial slurs and the swearing and, and everything you just heard, that is not common. You do hear it out on the road, and when it has happened, and I've heard it on the radio, there have been times where I have jumped in on the radio and I said, hey, there's no need for that, because I don't like it, and I condemn it. I condemn it wholeheartedly. But it's not as common as they make it out to be.
Australia has a long tradition of trucking. Without them, the nation grinds to a halt. But behind this well-oiled machine lies a problem no one knows how to fix. And it's taking a massive toll on some migrant drivers.
Two Indian couldn't stand up to a white man.
Our country doesn't have that's all there is.
There's a civil war coming. We're going to kill all the male Indians. We're going to drown all the kids. And we're going to sell all their women to slavery.
Hipple has been hauling freight for more than a decade. He worked his way up to the multi-combination license, the highest license for road vehicles, and began driving large trucks interstate about a year and a half ago. That's when he started hearing the abuse.
You won't find anyone saying on the radio that this is not right, this is not Australian way to do things. The whole day this abuse is going on.
All this abuse happens on this. It's a UHF radio, and every heavy vehicle truck driver should have one. It's used to communicate vital safety information about road conditions and traffic incidents.
Hey guys, the boundary road in Truganina is closing on left lane due to an accident.
Now this part here, this is my personal opinion, so comment if you've heard different. But I've been driving trucks about 10 years now, doing interstate for about 6 or 7 years. Not once have I ever heard an Indian driver come on the radio and try to work with us and let us know that there's something going on up ahead, whether a road is closed, whether there's an RBT or a drug bus or anything. I have never heard anyone. Remember, the ABC has to dramatise this, and this is why I don't like this news report, because they're really making it one-sided. If you're going to do a news report, you have to have both sides debating, confronting each other, talking together. You can't have the one. This is why other countries out there say, oh, Australia's a racist country, because of news reports like this.
But many migrants turn them off. They can't stand the torrent of abuse and being blamed for everything wrong on the roads, and they're often too afraid to speak.
I did try a couple of times and I had to face a lot of abuse, so then I stopped using it.
You're weak. I hate you Indian dog.
If the accent is Aussie accent, that's acceptable. But if it's like Punjabi or Indian accent, you will face a lot of abuse for that. So why would anyone would turn this thing on? Yeah, there's no point.
The nature of the UHF means there's little accountability for abusive speech. Users don't need to identify themselves, and the radio's short range means interactions are fleeting. There's no authority that monitors on-air conduct either.
On social media, it's a lot easier to catch the person who is behind, who is spreading the hate. But on radio, they can stay anonymous.
The political environment is changing in all over the world, especially in the Western countries, in Australia as well. So that plays a part as well.
Jaswinder, an Australian citizen and father of two, has been driving for more than a decade. He remembers chatting to his wife on the phone in Punjabi at a fuel stop in South Australia.
And that guy, he jumped out and said, this is Australia, speak English. And I simply replied to him that I'm not talking to you. If I need to talk to you, I'll speak in English, you know. Then he walked away, went to pay his fuel, came back, and before sitting in his truck, he spat on me. That is like one incident which I will never forget, because it's humiliating, it's really bad. I have to be, careful all the time. Watch my back all the time. Now every Indian driver thinks he don't want to talk to the Australian driver, because in his mind he will think that he might be racist too, but it might be not the case.
We know that drivers in the US, the UK and the EU experience high levels of racism, but we don't know how often this occurs in Australia's freight industry. We know there's been a slight increase in heavy vehicle collisions from human error, and migrants are sometimes blamed for this rise, but we don't know if they're overrepresented because that data is not collected.
They are working long shifts, they have really tight timeframes they have to work to. The minute we add racism or aggression to a truck driver who needs attention to detail, who needs good decision making, we're actually impacting their ability to do their job safely. You've got someone with a 6-tonne truck behind them who doesn't have as good decision-making skills as what they could have. We are not setting anyone up to be safe and effective on the roads.
To understand why the racism is so bad, we need to understand Australia's truck industry and history of immigration. Australia was about 28,000 truck drivers short last year, with multi-day interstate routes the hardest to fill. Many experienced drivers are retiring, and few young people are taking up the wheel. That's left a massive gap that's increasingly being filled by migrants. Between 2013 and 2023, Indian-born migrants have more than doubled in Australia. They are now the second largest migrant group after the UK and make up about 3% of Australia's total population.
Now, I have reached out to American truck drivers, Canadian truck drivers, and we kind of get the same report back. And I asked the American truck drivers, who's the biggest issue out on your roads? First of all, the Americans said Swift Transport, which I don't know. I'm guessing that's a bad transport company over there. But they said they do have a lot of issues with the Indians. And I asked them why. And they said standards. They don't communicate. They stick to their own. They have no courtesy. Now, this is what they say. You know, I'm just relaying what they've said. And the Canadians said that too. The only difference between the Canadians and the Canadians told me that the Indians over there are starting to actually build gangs and they're getting into organised crime and stuff over there. So that's a whole different ballgame. But look, I don't know what it is. Indians out there know that they can approach me and I get along with them. Even just the other day, you know who you are, down at the Mobile, down at Albury. You came up, I shook your hand, I had a good chat with you, I had a laugh. Now, when I see an Indian driver, I don't look at that Indian and go, oh, he's just an Indian. I look at you as a driver, as an Australian, somebody that's in the transport industry, just like I am. So, you know, I do not stereotype you, but I won't say attack, but I do confront the individual. So if there is an Indian driver that is doing the wrong thing out there, I will confront him. The problem is they turn around and say, oh, it's because I'm black, it's because I'm Indian, racist. And no, I've done it with other drivers out there. I done it not too long ago with a Finnemore's driver in a double tanker who I was overtaking, and then he sped up and I sat beside his truck for 10 kilometres because he held me out in the right lane. And I had to get on the radio and say, yeah, copy in the Finnemore's. He's like, yeah, mate, it was Aussie old guy. I said, can you back it off? Do you not see that I was trying to get past you and now you speed up and now you got me sitting on the right side of your trailer and you're leaving me in the right lane, oblivious to what's going on in all the cars behind me? And he goes, oh, yeah, mate, yeah, no worries, sorry. Like, you know, it's the individual person that I confront. But a lot of drivers do have the issues with the Indians, which is why we have to get to the core problem, why the Indian problem is out there.
Many previously worked in IT, business and engineering, but became truck drivers when their overseas qualifications weren't recognised. Because of the historic oversupply of truck drivers, only the most experienced were hired. So businesses aren't in the habit of training drivers or checking their experience matches their credentials. But now, the industry is desperate for drivers, and it's setting new drivers, including migrants, up for failure.
During COVID, the companies were so desperate for the drivers, they were not even, worried about if the driver actually know how to drive a truck or no. And during that time, lots of accidents happened.
Now, I will say that anybody from any other country, look, we have a shortage of drivers. As they said before, 28,000 jobs did not get filled. We need drivers, which is why a lot of companies are dropping their standards on who they hire. Within this video, he even admitted that during COVID, pretty much just putting bums in seats trying to get drivers. And I'm not going to name any companies, but we all know which companies they are. You can comment them if you want, but I'm not going to comment and name them. But we all know who they are because they're such big companies. They need bums so that they can make profits and they can pay their shareholders and and keep the board of directors happy. So that does happen.
We've got this great big problem that nobody's really dealing with it. We haven't actually worked out how to deal with the racism, because when you start out in the industry, you make mistakes, and it just takes one mistake and then everybody who is of Indian descent all of a sudden is picked on.
So where can complaints be made to? The country's heavy vehicle regulator handles compliance, not conduct in the workplace or on the radio. Safe Work Australia develops model workplace safety laws, but it's the state and territory regulators that enforce them. And those regulators say employers are responsible for minimizing psychosocial harm. Racial vilification also falls under criminal law, but in practice, holding perpetrators to account is nearly impossible without being able to identify them. To help newcomers, including migrants, into the industry become more skilled and challenge racist misconceptions, experts want to improve driver training and make licensing more consistent across states and territories.
People coming here from overseas is not a problem because we have a shortage of drivers. We just need to make sure that the people that hop in the truck have had their competency verified by the person who owns the truck. And then we need the person who owns the truck to know that he needs to be doing that.
Reforming the industry is hard. Some would like to introduce an accreditation process for transport operators to ensure they're meeting minimum standards and obeying laws.
There's such a low barrier of entry to our industry that anybody can become a transport company. You could pay $1,000, $2,000, do 1 or 2 day course at a driving school. You can go and hire a truck, tell people you're a transport company, or buy a truck, knowing nothing about the industry.
Jaswinder wants to see more practical training for new drivers instead of the standard 2-day courses. But something all drivers can do to help these guys out right now is to call out racism.
The people who actually support Indian drivers, they should speak more. The racists, they are very, very less in number, but they're really loud. They speak all the time. And the people who are not actually racist, they just stay quiet, you know.
So we've got to get down to this core problem of why there is a divide. There is clearly a divide between Australian and Indian drivers. Now I'm gonna voice what I see out on the road and my opinion. If you do want to throw it at me as, oh, you're a racist and you're just attacking us Indians, then go for it. I don't care anymore. The problem is in Australia, we have been vilified as racist whenever we confront an issue, whenever we raise a concern. Now, a lot of people are too afraid to, but look, I don't care anymore. What I see out on the road is, you see it from both parts, Indian drivers and Australian drivers who are driving like cowboys, who are doing the stupid thing, even just the other day. And I was even on the phone to one of the drivers that I work with when I said, holy crap, but this truck, because I'm the front of the Mercedes, a lot of you Mercedes drivers or Mac drivers and that might know, you have like a speed radar thing on the front of your truck. I picked him up on a flat at 128 kilometres an hour when we're supposed to be capped at 100 for safety reasons. 128 kilometres an hour he was on a flat. So he wasn't going downhill. But what I've seen out on the road, now, I have seen Indian drivers with their tarps flapping in the wind, not strengthened down. I've seen their loads bulging out of their curtains. They mustn't be strapped down properly, or they've moved during, or they just haven't loaded them properly. I have seen Indians that are always in a hurry, smashing it. Which you do get Aussie drivers like that also. But some will overtake you down a hill, doing 110, 115 Ks, rolling, flying down to get in front of you. Then when you level out, they're travelling at 98, 97, so you've got to overtake them again. I've seen Indian drivers that if there's a truck up ahead and they want to overtake that truck might be 2 kilometres up ahead, they'll pull over to the right lane now. And they will just sit there and back up all the cars behind them and eventually get there. They'll sit out there for ages. Now, one thing I always do, and any driver that overtakes me, you will see that if I see you come pulling out to overtake me, I'll back it off down to 90, get you in front, flash you over. Now, an experience that happened to me last week up at, how do you pronounce it? Mororo rest area, southbound there. Now, I pulled up at just before 10 p.m. Now, I was there mucking around on my phone, logbook was signed off, everything was done. I'm mucking around on my phone. And I was still awake at, about 10 to 11? I think it was, 10 to 11. Now, I heard a truck pull up beside me. It was a double. I won't name the company. But, because I don't want to, do anything wrong. But he pulled up at about, I reckon about 11:30. 11:30 he pulled up. Now, my alarm on my phone went off at 4:30, right? Now, I looked out my window and that truck was already gone. I'm like, that doesn't sound like a 7-hour break. And where his truck was parked, there was a massive pile of, how do I say this respectfully, fecal matter. A lot of poo on the ground with a lot of toilet paper, and the toilet was not even 5 to 10 meters away. He just got out of the truck. I ended up catching up to him down the road, a couple of hours down the road towards Sydney, because I seen his fleet number. And when I went past him, I noticed that he was an Indian. Now, I'm not saying that all Indians do it. They don't. But one thing I can say is that you would never see an Australian truck driver do that. Never. You would never see them get out of the truck when there's a toilet right there and just on the ground. They would never do it. And I would bet my whole life savings on it, which I don't have much, but I would do it. Now, there is a divide between Australian and Indian truck drivers. We got to find out what it is. We have to, whether it's just different ways of driving, whether they drive a certain way in India and then they struggle to adapt here to how things are done on our roads, whether they are afraid of Australians because of racism and things like that. To be honest, I'm just a truck driver that's out here observing the highway. But we have to have conversations on what is going on and why it's happening. Otherwise, it'll never get fixed. The government won't do anything. NHVR won't do anything. WorkSafe won't do anything. You know, they won't do nothing. So let's get to the bottom of it and figure it out. And as I said, I get along with a lot of Indian drivers. The problem is, in my opinion, what I experience out on the highway, I have more issues with Indian drivers than I do Australian drivers, substantially. And I don't want it to be that way. I want us to be as one. All in the industry together, all getting along, all joking and working together. But we have to find out the root cause of it all and why it's happening.